To some men, things just seem to happen, and other men seem to make things happen. We dedicate this recording to the second category. There are strategies involved in moving ahead, and this recording will be invaluable to those who demand success in their lives. If you listen carefully, the events in the lives of our fictitious characters will fill your mind with ideas. In the strategy of moving ahead in corporate life, there's no more important ingredient to the individual executive than the establishment of his own personal blueprint for progress. Call it setting that strategic goal. The point is not to perform on the short-range objectives in such a way that you jeopardize the long-range plans that you have or that your company may have for you. Well, just such a thing may have happened to Bob Franklin, Director of Sales Promotion and Advertising for a large West Coast cosmetics firm. Well, let's eavesdrop on Bob's Executive Vice President, Gordon Phillips, as he drops in for...
Bob, we haven't had a chance to talk for a week or so. I thought I'd drop in for 5 minutes, see how you're doing.
Oh, hi. I'm doing fine, Gordon. Man, I've been to Pillar and Post and South Oshkosh in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah? What have you been up to?
Let's see. It's been a pretty crazy itinerary. No master plan, mind you. Just zipped out to where I thought I could do the most good for the company.
What'd you manage to see?
Well, that's a good question. I caught several important cosmetics buyers in L.A. and San Francisco. I missed one in Boston and New York. Saw one in Baltimore. I blew a bit with Marshall Fields in Chicago, and no luck with Dayton Hudson, but we knocked 'em dead with our whole line in St. Louis, especially our new oil of butterfly mascara.
Sounds like a pretty enthusiastic itinerary, Bob, even though somewhat erratic.
Erratic? Erratic? Gordon, that's the way I like to operate. You know that. Zoom in on the buyers when they least expect it, jack 'em up on the basic cosmetic line, and then hit 'em with the new. Oh, I tell you, this oil of butterfly is going to be a big one. They'll love it in Sheboygan, too. Look out, Maybelline.
I'm glad to hear about your confidence in the new product. Certainly the market testing's been encouraging, but we've got a long way to go before we get into profit country. Now that you've had your mad swing from coast to coast, what's been going on with your principal duty with this company?
What do you mean, principal duty? Gordon, it sounds to me like you're sore about something.
Sore? Not at all. It just seems to me that every so often you tend to forget that you're now Director of Sales, Promotion, and Advertising. You're not a salesman anymore, Bob.
Well,
Not that you haven't been one of our most productive salesmen for a long time. You have been, and you still are one of the very best. But the point remains that you repeatedly turn the running of your department over to others and take off on a wild-goose sales chase whenever the mood strikes you. That's not organization.
Now, Gordon, I'm appalled at that crack. Blasted, I'm as well organized as any man in this company. I live for this cosmetic firm. It's all I think about day and night. I talk cosmetics, sleep cosmetics. If it had helped the sale of our product line, I'd even eat cosmetics.
We all know that, Bob. I have no reservations about your loyalty to this company, nor to its employees, nor to myself. As a matter of fact, I consider you one of the brightest young men in our whole corporate structure, and I have plans for you. So has the board. But the key question is, what plans do you have for yourself? And what are you doing about it?
What plans have I got? Well, I'll tell you why I hustle the way I do, Gordon. I'll tell you why I'm up to my teeth in company stock. I'll tell you why I'm absolutely neurotic about this company. Because I plan one day to be president of the firm.
The fortune cookie says, angry man speak what is in heart, not necessarily what is in head. And neurotic may very well be the key word in this conversation. Some companies admittedly seek out a high level of neurotic company dedication in their management, particularly sales. But this same neurotic drive requires constant guidance and direction. So it is with Bob Franklin. He's deeply and emotionally involved with his company. He's smart, ambitious, valuable. But he's lost his sense of direction, a very human failing. Wanting to be president of the firm, he certainly does have a long-range plan, or at least a desire. But in the day-to-day short-range activities, he's going awry. Fortunately for him, Gordon Phillips, the executive VP, has an older, cooler head. Well, next day, Bob dropped into Phillips' office to apologize for his attitude.
You busy, Gordon?
Never too busy for you, Bob. Come on in.
Gordon, I came in to tell you that I'm sorry for my explosion yesterday. And, well, I'm darn sorry that I blurted out what what I really want in this company someday.
Bob, I can't tell you how glad I am that we had that little talk yesterday. And I'm not one bit put out about your wanting to be president of this firm. I admire that kind of desire and honesty. And I've got to admit that I've had that in mind for you for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, and whether you know it or not, we've done considerable preparatory work with you in the last couple of years.
Oh, I'm delighted you feel that way, Gordon.
Well, it's true. You know that I'm going to retire in about 3 years. Our president, John Berger, probably will move out a couple of years after that, and the young blood's got to be ready and trained and willing.
And you think that I'm part of the young blood?
That's exactly what I mean. Now, on the contrary, that doesn't guarantee anything. John Berger could very well bring in somebody from Avon or Alberto Culver or some other cosmetics giant whom we'd have to consider. But John hasn't done that before, and we don't subscribe to the idea. As you know, we prefer to pick our own young men and cultivate them for the top management jobs, providing that they take our blueprint for success and run with it.
Mm-hmm. And your blueprint includes both long-range and short-range goals, doesn't it?
You bet it does. Always has. This company's almost 25 years old now. I started it with John. We went public 15 years ago and stayed local over the counter for about 5 of those years. And for the last decade, we've been considered a baby blue chip on the national list, and right now we're being considered for listing on the American Exchange.
Yeah, that's great progress, Gordon. It's a terrific tribute to you and John.
It's not meteoric progress, if that's what you mean. By the time John and I move out, we'd hope to have our stock listed on the New York Exchange. But, Bob, every single step of our company progress has been planned and executed. Everything that we represent today is the result of every single package of cosmetics that we ever manufactured and sold.
I think I get the message.
That's good, Bob. I thought you would.
Bob Franklin has learned that energy, desire, and drive are not enough in today's complicated business environment. He now realizes the urgency of making every moment and every decision work for him and his company. In setting his strategic goals from now on, Bob will view every opportunity for success as a link in the chain of his long-range dream. Are you ready for success? That's right, I ask whether you are ready for success. You may answer, "Of course I'm ready for success. Give me the biggest and most important and most difficult job in the company and I'll handle it." Now you know with that attitude and with that positive nature, I'm bound to be ready for success. Not necessarily, my friend. True, I admire your positive response. That's to your credit. But the question remains, have you conditioned yourself for success? Does that startle you? Good. Well, let's explore this a little further. With scant exception, most people want to be successful in life, and naturally in business. A man's job, his profession, is a very big part of his life. Much of his satisfaction and his material worth will stem from his job experience. But job experiences become somewhat mundane after a while, and simply do not furnish the challenge necessary for the average man. It is essential to find the challenge, and then challenge yourself to success.
Boy, I really got into that ball, didn't I?
You sure did. You hit it a ton. Hey, Lefty, you were probably the best hitter to come into the major league since Musial. Now, what makes you tick?
What makes me tick? Gee, I don't know. I just love the game. I love to get involved in it. I give the best I can every second of every game, and things seem to work out for me.
Well, I think it's more than that, Lefty.
Yeah? Like so?
Well, I've noticed for a long time that you're the first man on the practice field and the last man to leave after the game.
Yeah, I guess you're right, come to think of it. Well, you see, the way I figure it, I'm in a hurry to live. I got hooked on this game a long time ago, and, well, it became my life. So I had to challenge myself to make every moment, every play, every break work for the team and myself. The game's been good to me, and I've got to be good to the game. I only have so many years to play, and, well, I must make time work for me and the game.
I must make time work for me and the game. What a simple truth. Lefty the ball player has learned something vital to the executive as well as himself. Make time work for you. A great way to determine just how effectively you use your time is to take any time-consuming job and cut the time requirement in half. Right. Try to do the job in half the time you'd normally allot to it. Another useful hint in this area is to keep a time log for a month or so. This will supply you with a close record of exactly how you utilize your time. Pretty soon you'll be able to identify the time wasters and eliminate them from your schedule. But Lefty kind of intrigues me. Let's talk with him some more. Lefty, I'm back. Can we talk some more?
Oh, sure, anytime.
Well, I wonder, a great ball player like yourself, are your aims the same as the management and ownership of your team? Well, what I mean is, do you think first of the team or your own accomplishments on the field?
Well, I'll tell you, the way I look at it, if this team don't win all the marbles this year, it's been a lost year for me. Oh, sure, I love to hit the ball with it, that great feeling up my arm when I connect. I love to run and to use a glove. This is a great game. And I want to play it as long as I can and be as good as possible. But, you see, the really important thing is for the club to win. You see, if the team does not win, I am nothing.
Without giving it very much thought, Lefty has adopted the second major point of having challenged himself to success: personalized corporate goals. In other words, he has transformed company goals into his own plan of achievement. Related to management, through accomplishment of a company goal, you also increase your own personal ability. Assuming that you're a sales manager, for example, your company goal might be to increase the sales quota by, let's say, 20%. You now can translate this goal into an opportunity to improve your ability to motivate men through personal counseling, to learn more about sales training, to institute a new kind of direct mail campaign. If you have only limited experience in any of these areas, the company goal, therefore, allows you to increase both your own personal experience and your worth to the company. Another question, Lefty.
It's all right with me. Hey, it's a good thing you catch me in the dugout and not at first base, huh?
Right. It's safer, too.
Sure.
Lefty, what kind of long-range objectives do you set for yourself? I mean, would you like to better Babe Ruth's 714 home runs in your career? Would you like to get 3,000 hits? What kind of career average do you shoot for?
Well, that's easy for me to answer. No, I don't shoot for any career number, you see. I ought to play maybe another 8 or 10 years. How do I know? Maybe I'll get injured. Maybe I'll wear out a little sooner, so I don't know. But I learned a long time ago just to play for today, you see. I figure if I'm lucky, I ought to get about 200 hits each year. Now, about 20% of the balls I hit are around the fence and can go out for home runs. So, I average about 40 homers each year. Okay, already I hit 350 of them. So if I play 10 more years and my average holds up, I could set a new record. But it would be different because I would play more games than the Babe. Anyway, that don't bother me. It's how good I hit this year, this month, this week, today. That's what counts.
As any executive can plainly see, Lefty is a believer in short-range objectives. What he does over a full career is important to him, of course, but his current total effort is directed toward what happens now and in the immediate future. His long journey began with that single step, and so it has continued. One last point, Lefty. Do you feel that you do more than you're required to do? By that I mean, do you feel that you consciously put more effort into the things you don't do so well naturally?
Oh, see. I think I'm a pretty bad base runner, you know? I'm big and flat-footed, and I'm pretty slow. But I practice all the time, and I watch the pitcher very close. And if he turned his back on me and touched the rubber with both feet, and if we need that extra base, I am off.
Point 4. Lefty searches out the tough jobs. Not necessarily the jobs that he does better than anyone else, but the jobs that need to be done. In challenging yourself to success, keep these 4 thoughts firmly in mind. 1. Make time work for you. 2. Personalize corporate goals. 3. Set short-range objectives. 4. Search out tough jobs. And never, ever coast. If you do, the hard sprinters in your company will breeze right past you. It's frequently worked for, long and hard. It's anticipated with wonderment for years. It's talked about, dreamed of, and waited for, sometimes very impatiently. When it arrives, if it arrives, it's accepted with feigned surprise. Following its arrival are moments of doubt, confusion, tortured days and nights of on-job and social adjustment. It, of course, is the career promotion. It tends to raise a man in responsibility, in status, and in salary. It may also totally change that man's lifestyle, his very being. That's where Carl Hausman enters our picture now. Carl has been a highly effective executive for a New England textile manufacturer. His recent promotion out of the direct line of fire to a position on the support staff of the company has had the customary traumatic effect. His friend, colleague, and fellow staff executive Max Werfel is a German immigrant whom you might expect to have both feet on the ground. He has. He, too, has run a fine track record in the two worlds of line and staff assignments. Well, Max joins Carl at a nearby restaurant now for a belated luncheon celebration. Carl's already one up, or maybe two up.
Hello there, Carl. I'm sorry to be late.
Oh, nothing to it, Max, baby. I've been having fun. And the martinis here are absolutely immoral.
Oh.
That's so good. Have a little drink, Max. Waiter, hey!
Yes, sir.
Max, what do you have?
Well, I think I will have a little dry sherry. A small glass, please.
Okay.
Little dry sherry from the Little Wet Berry.
Oh, and waiter, another dry martini for me. The drier the better, on the rocks.
Yes, sir.
Well, Carl, it's nice to be able to sit down with you at lunch and celebrate your promotion.
Right.
Although I am a little late. Let's see now. Your staff promotion came about 2 weeks ago, didn't it?
Yeah, 2 weeks and 3 days ago, Max. I know because I've counted every second of it.
Oh, you've counted every second? Why?
Because I've been absolutely miserable. That's why.
But I don't understand. You've worked for this promotion for years. You've given up a good piece of your life. It's more money, it's more prestige, it's more challenge. Why are you miserable?
No, I don't know, Max. It's just that everything's changed.
Oh?
I don't see as much of my wife and kids as I used to. We eat dinner later now, so sometimes even dine alone.
Mm-hmm.
I get to the office earlier, and I leave later. Old friends down on the 3rd floor seem to avoid me now. New associates on the 4th floor, yeah, they're kind of cool and distant alike. You wouldn't think. They're just moving up. One dinky floor in a company. The same company would make that much of a difference. Well, man, it's like two different worlds.
Your drinks, gentlemen. A fairly dry sherry and a dry martini.
Ah, that's good.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, girl.
Carl, I'm really sorry that you've had to go through this kind of an adjustment, but I suspect it's a part of the penalty of progress in life.
Well, if this is progress, old boy, I'm not so darn sure that I want any more of it.
I think you're feeling very sorry for yourself, Carl. You're getting all upset because you work a few hours longer than you used to. So you dine alone once in a while. So what?
So? I don't like it. That's so what?
And as far as the people you work with are concerned, of course there's an adjustment, a readjustment to be made, but much of that is up to you. Perhaps you've cut yourself off from your former colleagues on the 3rd floor. Just by not being there any longer is bound to make some difference. And as far as your new colleagues are concerned on the 4th floor, well, give them a little time to get to know you.
A little time? I've been in the same confounded company with most of them for 6 years now. No, Max, I don't care what you say. This promotion looks like a bad deal all around the horn.
Party's getting rough. Old Max is a pretty good student of human nature. He recognizes every one of Carl's symptoms as a kind of upward upheaval. There's never been a company promotion that hasn't shaken up somebody. The man who moves out, the man who moves in, or the associates and friends around him. Much of what Carl feels may also be attributed to his own interpretation of the Peter principle. It probably revolves to some extent around self-doubt. Carl really wonders whether he's worthy of his new position in the company, whether he can carry it off, and what his colleagues actually think of him. He's learning the hard way that promotions give vent to two distinct problems. Problems involving the job itself, and problems involving the social features of the job. Which is worse is a matter of choice. Anyway, as the luncheon wears on, Max begins to make his points with hard-headed assurance.
But if you would let this go on, Carl, I could see failure for you. You know, I've known some executives who've actually suffered nervous breakdowns as a result of letting their promotions get to them. Others who have made a bottle a career.
Well, you're right, of course, Max. Doggone it, you're always right. Well, thanks for the big lunch and the hot coffee. You know, I feel a little better.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. But it's more important that your attitude toward your promotion should improve. Try to take things in stride, Carl. This fine career that you've had with our company, don't let it fall apart now that you're moving toward the pinnacle. In previous jobs, you've had to conform to more rules and regulations on your behavior and conduct. Now you are more on your own. And so leadership has to replace much of that sense of conformity.
Well, I've certainly been a lousy leader today.
Oh, not at all. You're a human being, and you've had a moment that you've needed. But don't need too many of them. No, on the contrary. This moment of self-evaluation may be good for you. It's been a chance to kind of get things off your chest. I think we both understand your problem. It's only temporary. And I'm convinced that you'll move forward from this slight impasse.
One day in the life of a recently promoted executive. A good observation by old Max. Leadership must replace conformity. To that, let's add 1. Begin early to broaden your job knowledge. 2. Recognize the value of social preparation. And there you have the framework for helping you make the most of your promotion.
Why, that dirty, that so-and-so. I've never in all my life, I just can't believe, of all the conservatives I ever met, how can they do that to me?
There's a man with a problem. Has he lost his car, his wife, maybe his home? No, to him, at least for the moment, the loss may be just as severe as loss of wife or home. Have you guessed it yet? Right, he's been passed over for a promotion. His immediate response is very human, very normal, very average. He's getting the pain and frustration off his chest. His temporary blow-up is really not all bad. It may be helpful to pour out those innermost feelings to himself, to a relative, or to an understanding friend. Once he's gone through his shock and self-cleansing, however, this man had better get down to cases. There are 4 basic rules a person may use to guide himself when he needs to bounce back from a setback. 1. Maintain your equilibrium. 2. Learn from the experience. 3. Map a new course of action. 4. Start working at your new plan immediately. By following these 4 points, our growling friend will move his life forward again. He'll recover from the trauma of being passed over, and he'll bounce back from his setback. With respect to the first point, maintaining your equilibrium, a psychologist might look at it this way.
In recovering from or managing a personal failure, regain your values as to what failure really is. Determine how big the failure is, who thinks it was a failure, and who knows about it. As you'd suspect, there are many degrees of failure. Some may be the result of missed opportunities or carelessness. Some may affect only the man and his family. Others are bound to be of greater magnitude. In a larger sense, a man's mistakes or misconduct here could well affect a great many people. His reaction to failure, then, will be deeper and more troubled.
Deeper and more troubled. Now, as to who thinks it was a failure, sometimes only the man himself thinks so, or only his superior, or the whole company. Nearly the same circumstances hold true for who knows about it: the man himself, the man and his superior, the whole company, or the whole universe, depending on the size of the blunder or cause of failure. A young advertising executive recently lost a major account when he failed in his follow-up. I asked him how he handled the situation, and this was his reply.
Well, I chewed myself up pretty badly for a couple of days, and then decided that I'd be foolish to let it get me down. So quietly I went to work on another account we've wanted in our agency for a long time. And believe it or not, I got the account simply because I pulled all stops. And armed with this fat new account, I went to my agency boss and I said, "Chief, bad news. I lost the ABC Company account." Well, before he could blow a gasket, however, I quickly added, "But there's also great news. I got the XYZ account, and their ad budget is twice as big." Well, the boss was a pretty understanding guy, and I was kind of proud. I guess I didn't lose my equilibrium.
Looks like that young man will be all right. He did maintain his equilibrium. In our formula of reconstruction, the second point is to learn from failure. Let's consider the case of another young executive who became national sales manager of his firm by the age of 30. Was there failure on the horizon? Well, here's what he had to say.
I don't know whether it was luck or circumstance, whatever you want to call it. But I was popped into the sales manager's job at a fairly tender age, and a lot was expected of me. Things went along so, declining sales and declining profits, and as you'd figure, I got more and more uptight about the whole thing. Felt I was kind of working against myself. I could feel my superiors looking at me with a certain question: does this guy have it? Oh, I thought I had it okay, but the condition of the general economy definitely was not working for me. After a lot of self-searching, I went to my boss with a suggestion. Al Fredericks, a terrific sales manager with one of our competitors, had just taken early retirement. I knew Al was champing at the bit to get back into action for a couple more years, so I suggested we hire Al to work along with me and kind of fill me in on some of the things I wasn't able to cope with. Either that or I'd resign if the company wanted me to. Fortunately, they took a dim view of my leaving the company and agreed to bring Al Fredericks on board for 2 years. I can't tell you how much those 2 years with Al meant to me. It was like going back to college for graduate work. He taught me 1,001 tricks and really polished me up for the years ahead. You might say I learned a lot as a result of my own failure.
Failure isn't too valuable a teacher unless a man is willing to convert his lesson into action, unless he maps a new course. Some time ago, a manufacturing manager was moved into a slot requiring greater financial knowledge than he had. The whole thing was a blur, and he knew it. As the job started slipping away from him, though, he began to bone up on accounting and finance, attended some classes and seminars, and prepared himself to recover his lost momentum. It worked, because he mapped his new course and hewed the line. In recovering from failure, the fourth point is the final key. Start using your new plan immediately. The sooner you correct your course of action, the better. You take Cy Walton, for instance. Cy was chief engineer for a firm in Philadelphia. He'd begun to realize that a number of organizational problems were beyond his grasp. So did the executive VP, who stepped in and demoted Cy. Mr. Walton went through all the rigors that we've explored in this episode, and then made his move.
It's not easy to get knocked down in your own company, but I decided to take it and see how I could correct things, and correct my life. In my spare time, I began to study management practices. It wasn't so foreign after all. I observed other top people on the job and tried their success patterns. Having failed once in the company, I was passed over for a promotion a few times, but I didn't let it bug me. Finally, some 3 years later, I again became chief engineer. Well, this time I was ready. I knew I'd make it, and I did. It was all in the state of mind. and in the state of readiness.
In each of these careers, the men involved remembered to maintain his equilibrium, learn from experience, map a new course of action, start working at a new plan immediately. If we tell ourselves that we've never failed, we're only playing ostrich, conveniently forgetting what we'd like to forget, not seeing what needs to be seen. Being human, first and foremost, we're all going to make mistakes and sometimes fail. But failure needn't be the end of one's existence, for it's the nature of man to rally in support of one who has failed, but has the method and the character to bounce back from setbacks. An executive recruiter recently commented that ambition is like a two-bladed sword. It can do a lot of good or a lot of evil. For it can do enormous good for the wielder, or it can lead to his destruction and downfall, depending on the deftness and dexterity of the swordsman. But just what is ambition? Can we recognize it? Can we classify it? Is ambition capable of being kept in balance? The editors of Nation's Business have done a great amount of research in this vital area. They've quizzed and polled authorities in the field of human motivation all over the country. The results will give you much greater insight into your own degree of ambition, how to spot it, how to use it. But most of all, these authoritative responses will help you keep ambition in balance. An eminent psychologist, Dr. James Farr of Farr and Glasscock Associates, says,
Ambition may be divided into two parts. One is goal setting. Let's say a desire for some objective. It could be money or skill or prestige or even position. As a matter of fact, it might also be a combination of these attainments. The second part of ambition may be classified as the drive to work toward that goal.
Dr. Farr also goes on to explain about a young man in his firm who wanted to become vice president of the company.
The young fellow slouched at the desk, popped his feet up for comfort, picked at his fingernails with a letter opener, and said, "I'd give anything in the world to be vice president around here." Anything but hard work is what he meant. Now this to me was a typical case of where goal setting had outstripped inner drive.
Then there's the other side of the coin. What about the fellow with plenty of drive, but no concrete objectives?
He's a rudderless speedboat. He circles through the water like mad, without ever knowing what his course is. Just the same, I'd rather see a man with plenty of drive walk through that door than a man with plenty of ambition, but no drive. It's easier to direct that drive into productive channels.
Three things seem to indicate whether or not a person has ambition. 1. Dissatisfaction with the status quo, with things as they are, and the desire to improve the existing situation. 2. Looking at the future with anticipation, thinking and planning for the years ahead. 3. Restlessness to move upward, to get more authority, prestige, and money, to learn more, to become a master of his trade, his craft, or his profession. Do you have these feelings? Then you can safely put yourself on the side of those who want to get ahead. Unfortunately, two forces responsible for a person's feeling of ambition lie somewhat beyond his control. The first is society. The second is his early experience. Dr. Harry Levinson of the Menninger Foundation views the problem this way.
Somehow the business ethic seems to require that a person be ambitious. It's expected that you'll want to get ahead. We completely overlook the fact that not everyone wants to. Many companies have a now-forgotten man who rejected a promotion that might have required uprooting his family.
As we begin to see, ambition can be a painful thing. Now, what can we do about it? Not everyone with the ambition to be president of a firm is going to make it. There's only one president. One at a time, anyway. Dr. Saul Gellerman, an eminent psychological consultant, takes this approach.
There's only one top man. A person failing in this goal will be frustrated. But far better to be frustrated than to lose your self-respect. This often happens when a person doesn't even try to become the top man, but harbors a desire to.
When this happens, Dr. Gellerman points out, the man often begins to drink excessively in middle age. He's ashamed for not having at least tried. Was the triggering factor here fear of failure? Perhaps, but let's leave that for another time. Excessive ambition, on the other hand, often results in loss of normal ties. A person may become so involved with his career that he slowly loses touch with his family and friends. What happens then if the job blows up? Psychologists say that a man who gives himself so completely to one aspect of life is making a serious mistake. If the goal doesn't materialize, the frequent result is emotional bankruptcy. Dr. Gellerman says further,
A person should honestly try to face up to his worth in the marketplace, forgetting the daydreams and idle wishes. What, honestly, are your chances of becoming top man? Furthermore, do you really want to be president? Are you absolutely willing to pay the penalties? Will you shoulder the responsibilities? Will you risk your own health and life and money?
under close personal scrutiny, a man often realizes that the answer to these questions is no. So he may then begin to adjust his ambitions to more realistic goals, ones which lend him greater comfort and peace of mind. That's worth a little something too, isn't it? If a man will just look back over his past achievements, he'll better appraise his current market worth. Then he has a guide as to what he might expect from the future. Dr. Peter G. Angelos, a Washington, D.C. psychiatrist, makes this observation about ambitions.
Don't become frightened by the ambitions you have. Many people tend to look at the very top of the mountain, where they'd like to go. Then they become despondent because they feel they'll never reach those lofty peaks. What they should do, really, is to back off. Stop for a moment. Take a look at the distance they've already traveled. This can give a man great courage to go on.
In conjunction with Dr. Angelos' remark about looking back, Dr. Farr prescribes the use of sub-goals, moment-to-moment techniques leading to the main objective. These, then, are the observations of some of the most eminent men of our time: Farr, Levinson, Gellerman, Angelos. Eminent in their study, their examination, and their evaluation of men's minds and what motivates them. By different routes and in different words, they've arrived at similar conclusions, almost in concert. An honest reappraisal of your goals, your ambitions, may not solve all your problems, but it will go a long way toward leading you to a productive and satisfying career. It will help you keep your ambition in balance. Would you like to know how far you'll advance and what you will ultimately achieve in your career in business? Well, that's a question we'd all like to have the answer to. Ironically enough, we usually fail to seek this very knowledge from the basic source best able to give it. Business associates are lavish in their predictions with respect to our aptitudes, our experience, our knowledge, and our specific talents. These are fairly measurable items. But what about the mysterious complexes within each of us? These are the unknowns, as opposed to the known or obvious abilities. Why does a man with a certain set of capabilities attain so much more during his career than another man, especially when their abilities appear to be so similar? Only one person is reasonably able to assess the knowns and the unknowns in relation to a potential success pattern. That's the man himself. That's you. And here are some provocative thoughts about setting your own pace to success. A young executive in a Wall Street firm recently received a hefty promotion. One of his associates was overheard saying,
Boy, that fella's progressing like lightning. And funny thing, Bill just came out of nowhere.
Is that a fact? Just came out of nowhere. Many years ago, Tony Bennett, a popular singer, had a smash record and was suddenly recognized as an overnight sensation. Sure, said Tony. After a 20-year apprenticeship, I was an overnight hit. Nor did Bill the executive come out of nowhere. Successful executives rarely do. It merely seems that way to others who haven't the remotest idea what someone else really does with his available time.
Life is one plot with a single cast of characters. In the course of a lifetime, all men have the same experiences, just about the same abilities, and go just about as far, all things considered. The real difference is in the breaks. Some guys get 'em, some guys don't.
Far from it. In fact, no human being performs executive tasks at a constant rate. Executive performance is an undulating, uneven existence at best. Good ideas and good results never flow with a mechanical evenness. A good question to ask yourself is, how long do my performance peaks last? Do they last a day, a week, perhaps a month? It's obvious that the longer your peaks of performance last, the more favorable results will be. It's in this area of performance peaks that each executive needs to ask himself,
This task will require an enormous amount of time and energy. Shall I tackle the task, or shall I skip it?
no one else can make that hard decision for you. Nobody, including the reader of tea leaves, can predict with certainty whether you will ever make such a decision. One point, however, is abundantly clear. Whenever you decide to give the best that's in you for a prolonged period, you will produce results that were never expected of you. Perhaps results that you never expected of yourself.
If there's anything that upsets me in my career, it's criticism. Boy, how I hate criticism. And self-criticism. Now, there's a great way for anybody to destroy his career. We get enough combat in our business lives that we don't have to resort to that self-critique malarkey.
It's no exaggeration to say that from time to time a man is born anew, in spirit and in outlook. Both inner and outer forces combine in this reshaping process. The outer force is comprised of our experience, environment, the people around us. The inner force is simply self-examination. No need to say that the second force may be the more important, for it is in the area of self-examination and self-criticism that we can make significant changes in work habits, attitudes, and personal relations. In effect, we are setting our own pace to success. After a little self-examination, what would you say your strengths are?
Me? Oh, I'd say I make a good appearance, dress well, drive a big car, belong to an expensive club. That about covers it.
Although a shade superficial by current values, the combination of appearance, mode of transportation, and social life is not unimportant. However, there are more absolute standards to consider where your list of personal strengths is concerned. Think about these points: to lead, to follow, to produce new ideas, to invent, to write well, to speak well, to learn rapidly, to convince, to organize and systematize, to make friends, to anticipate needs.
Man, a list like that can go on for 100 years with an endless list of strength requirements for any executive.
True, it could be endless. There are thousands of different ways to classify each man's strengths and abilities. That's what makes it such a risky business for us to evaluate someone else's career potential. However, the points we've just explored are logical guides for self-examination. And that's the difference. Vague generalizations about another's strengths often fall apart. How often have you heard these comments?
Oh, he'll go far. He's a good speaker.
But being a good listener may be more important in a given set of circumstances.
Don't worry about that fella. He'll succeed. He's a wonderful listener.
Is he, however, able to translate the things he learns into effective action through others?
That guy won't get anywhere at all in this company. He's not a good leader.
Maybe not. But has it ever occurred to you that if we continue to insist on leadership at the expense of all other qualifications, what might happen to America? We could well end up with 200 million chiefs and no Indians to plant the corn. You see, a good follower can be the right man at the right place to assist another man who is a great leader. Equipped with the arsenal of considerations we've discussed in this episode, you should now have a keener awareness of your strengths than anyone else. If your strengths have been hidden under a bushel until now, it's easy to see why those who haven't seen your abilities before will mutter,
"It just doesn't figure."
The editors of Nation's Business hope that this complete series of executive seminars in sound has offered stimulation, encouragement, and useful guidelines for your development as an executive. We are planning additional recordings, which you will hear about soon. These will cover many more facets of the businessman's life, in his job, in his home, and in his community. We welcome your suggestions.